Everybody, my name is Sol. I am one of the social media influencers for the community health team, but I'm also an art educator for our new cultural center, which is called The Corner. And I'm just here today to share my experience with biphobia and queerphobia because I've experienced both.
Wonderful. So thanks again for being here. We want to continue the discussion. So I would like to hear what your experiences are with, biphobia, queerphobia, and, some of the feelings that you've had surrounding those experiences.
So first, I would like to say that I feel like the biphobia kind of aided in me identifying as queer. As far as like coming into my own like sexual identity at a young age, like in middle school and high school, and only being able to identify like that I like boys and I like girls. So like the main identity that was shared was bisexual. So that is what I like started to call myself and like identify as. And I like remember this one day, my mom was braiding my hair, and now she's like very open and welcoming and understanding of my sexuality. But then I remember like being like, oh yeah, I think I like girls, I think I'm bisexual. And she was like, yeah, okay, whatever, like that's just a phase, like everybody's attracted to girls every now and then, you're gonna grow out of it and things like that. So I experienced that erasure, and it led to like me questioning more like, okay, do I really like girls, is this a phase, and like kind of being hesitant to really explore same-sex relationships at that time. And then there's always just, not always, but there have been a few times where I wanted to date women who identify as lesbian, and when I had expressed to them that I was like bisexual, there was always this underlying like mistrust or discomfort with the idea of me possibly leaving them for a man. And I've had it in some instances with a man too, like feeling like, oh, like I'm not giving you everything
Yeah.
that you want, so you might leave me for a woman. And like these trust issues kept building and building. And so with that, it just led me to research more about identities because I was tired of having these same conversations. And also I was just finding myself more and realizing that I was attracted to people based off of their like personality and the vibes that we share, not like necessarily based on gender. And so that's how I landed on queer. But I mean, there's still some like uh erasures in that because I feel like, I'm African, I'm Kenyan. Shout out to my flag. And there's I feel like it's a little bit harder to come out to your African family, and they still have these ideas of me being in a heteronormal relationship and having a husband and having kids. And not that that's something that I don't know if will happen, but like it just kind of feels like I'm boxed in at times, and this is what they want, and that's it. So yeah, so that's some of my experience.
Yeah. Wow. No, I mean, I definitely could relate to that, like being African American, having this kind of like, I've had a conversation about like society pushing on, the gay agenda on to black
Yeah,
people. Like, what is that? That's the most frustrating thing. And so
yeah,
being like live a life trying to be authentic to myself, but combating those type of narratives is like exhausting, right? And so, I mean, you just get so tired and fed up with it. But if you could, leave the mark on the world or a message, what would that be about, queerphobia or biphobia?
well, I would say to anybody who's like, figuring out their sexual identity, don't be afraid to like ask questions, find people who like you can relate to and identify with, and have conversations with them. And also like just stand your ground, like when people are trying to erase parts of your identity, just make sure you know who you are, you're affirming it, and just stay true into that. And then if you're not feeling these feelings, and you're not questioning it for yourself, just mind your business. Like Don't be hateful because you don't understand. And if you can find a way to respectfully ask people in your community to educate you so that you can be more informed and more respectful of the LGBT community as a whole, like, do that.
Absolutely. Amazing. Well, thanks again for joining. I'm sure we'll get a chance to do a live again together.
Yes.
So thanks for being open, being transparent. We appreciate you.
We
Thanks.
appreciate you and the Whitman-Walker Health platform for this conversation. So thank you so much.
All right. All right. From all the conversations we've had thus far, you can see that, transphobia, biphobia, queerphobia, homophobia, they're pretty similar, but they are not the same. Both gay and straight people can be transphobic. And I've actually seen it, like, especially in my community. So we need to figure that out. But I have JJ who will be joining us soon. JJ will be giving a little bit about his experiences with homophobia. And so let's get JJ in the room. All right. We're waiting for JJ. JJ, where are you? All right. Still working on getting JJ in the room. So we'll keep trying. But I hope this has been a good conversation. I've enjoyed hearing about everyone's stories. So there.
Hello. Sorry. I was like, I hope I did this correctly. Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I have been enjoying and being so proud of all the conversations that we've had so far. So I'm doing well. I'm emotional, but I think that's a common theme here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully you don't get me more tear jerked over here.
Oh, we'll see. I know I'm already like wiping some away from all these talks.
Yeah. All right, so I'll let you introduce yourself.
Awesome, thank you. So, hi everyone. My name is JJ. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I identify as gay. I work at Whitman-Walker as the social media outreach coordinator for the community health department. So, I have the privilege of working with all the amazing people that you've talked to so far, all the time. Such a great family.
Absolutely. So, thanks again for joining.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And so I would like to hear, and I'm sure our viewers are interested to hear
Yeah.
about your experiences with homophobia and some of the feelings that you gathered from those experiences.
Yeah, definitely. So when you and Orlando were talking about your experiences and how it started all the way back in elementary school, middle school, high school, that rang so true for me because that's when I didn't even know what being gay was. I didn't know what that meant, but there was always just this connotation with the word gay, with homo, any of these words that just felt so negative, and I didn't know like why it felt so negative to me. But over the years, it's made more and more sense. So I grew up in New Jersey in a pretty Catholic conservative family. Um, and we went to church every Sunday, and I just remember thinking all those times how my parents would talk to me and they'd say, that's your community, that's where you feel most of yourself, like those who you rely on, you can open up to. And I was just, I was saying, oh yeah, of course, totally, but in my head it just didn't feel right. I never had seen anyone who in that community that I was part of who was gay, who was openly themselves. And I think that's why representation matters so much, especially in those spaces. So that was, I think, a big part of my where I've experienced homophobia. And like just in high school, I played like varsity sports, and the term gay is just thrown around as a slur, especially in those hyper masculine places. Um, and I definitely remember finding myself um, like as a counter to this homophobia, kind of redirecting that negative energy and trying to just be like the best that I could be at everything and like really internalizing it. So, it's like to hide that part of me, I would be like, you know what, I'm going to get the best grades. I'm going to play sports. I'm going to do all these other things and like be the best of them so that people don't know that I'm gay, right? So people who don't know that's a part of me that I viewed as negative. So it's definitely been a learning process to kind of remove myself from that toxic behavior and accept who I am. And I think that's a big part of saying no to homophobia is unlearning your own internalized homophobia, right? And then, you know, welcoming yourself to this awesome queer community that we have here at Whitman-Walker, in DC, in my friend spaces, all of the above.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, what's some of the feelings that you've had, like from
Yeah.
yeah,
So again, everyone said has been so similar to my own experience, which I think is why it's so important to have these conversations. But sad, small,
yeah,
uh, forgotten, I think, maybe not fully realized. Yeah, it just does not feel good, I would say.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, I definitely identify with what everyone's been talking about.
absolutely. I think one of the ones that I would say for the majority of my childhood, I think I just felt isolated,
Yeah,
to talk to people
I
like
agree.
about, what you may be feeling sexually or your
Yep,
action to, whatever. That was definitely.
totally.
So if you could, say one thing, or leave the world with a message regarding homophobia, what would that be?
So many things. So much. I would say, firstly, that homophobia is still happening. Transphobia, biphobia, it's queerphobia, it's all happening as we've seen here. Just because, gay marriage got legalized does not mean that this discrimination has gone away forever. So that's one important thing. And I think when we think about that, we have to think about who's still most vulnerable in our communities and really acknowledge, say their names. Like there have been 11 trans gender nonconforming people murdered in the United States so far this year. So we have to think about who's really experiencing all this homophobia, transphobia, biphobia, queerphobia, who's experiencing that. And I think we really have to do our part to make sure that's known and to really fight against that. So myself, like I said, I identify as gay, but I'm also a cisgendered white male in the queer community, right? So I have to really leverage that privilege, I think, um, and stick up for the more vulnerable people in our community. And I think that doesn't happen as enough in queer gay communities. People of color, women are experiencing their whole set of problems and prejudices that I don't experience every day, right? So I think holding that privilege and keeping that in mind, especially if you are a white cis gay man,
Mhm.
is really important. I think I want to definitely shout that from the rooftops and make sure everyone who's watching knows that.
Yeah, I like that message. In fact, we all need to check our privilege, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm black, but as a cisgender man, there are things I could never experience be that a trans person would, right? And so
Exactly.
privilege there, and I have to acknowledge that. And so um, I don't allow transphobia in my space. It's not amongst my family or my friends. That's just not.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to say to others, like, don't allow it. It's not okay.
Yeah.
Not
No, it's not. And it doesn't, just because you're gay, it doesn't give you the pass to be biased in another way.
exactly.
It's not like you get that hall pass,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah, like we're all in this together. So,
No, we are. Exactly.
all right. Well, anything else you want to leave us with, JJ?
I don't think so. I think these have been such a great space for us to have these conversations. So fortunate for the Whitman-Walker to give us this platform to have these conversations. And thank you for having being part of all of this and doing an awesome job.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Of
Thanks.
course, of course. All right. Thanks for having me, Dave.
All right, we'll talk later.
Yep.
Bye bye. All right, everybody. So we've had some amazing conversations, about transphobia, homophobia, biphobia, queerphobia. And so some other examples of phobias in our community could be, could come from religious institutions, companies, the government, or even government-funded organizations. So, for example, the prohibition of same-sex couples being allowed to get married, being fired just for being LGBTQ, or not being allowed into certain housing because of your sexual orientation and or gender identity. Those are all, some phobias and ways that a person could experience discrimination. So Justia, a U.S. website that specializes in accessing legal information, states that Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which is a federal law that protects employees against discrimination based on certain type of characteristics. Those characteristics include race, color, national origin, sex, and religion. Under Title VII, an employer may not discriminate with regard to any term, condition, or privilege of employment. Any day now, the United States Supreme Court will issue a decision on whether discrimination based on gender identity or sexual orientation is in fact discrimination under Title VII. This is a monumental and historic opportunity for protecting LGBTQ plus individuals from discrimination and guaranteeing opportunities for health, employment, and socioeconomic advancement for LGBTQ identified individuals. Our Whitman-Walker Institute's policy team has worked hard on this issue, and we're following the case very closely. So keep your eyes peeled for a decision from the Supreme Court. We're really looking forward to this decision. So keep your eyes out. We also want to share our condolences with the passing of Amy Stevens. Amy was a transgender woman and a plaintiff in the case in the effort to protect folks from employment discrimination based on their gender identity. Amy was fired from her job after coming out as a trans woman. So a moment of solidarity for Amy. So if you need some tips on how to prevent homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia, I'll give a few for you. Avoid using negative or offensive language. This can include terms that negatively describe LGBTQ people. Be mindful of using casual language that can be offensive, like saying things or something is so gay, or using other condescending language towards the LGBTQ population. Avoid believing stereotypes about LGBTQ people or any people in general. Don't assume things about LGBTQ plus communities. Also, be an ally in the LGBTQ community and not a silent ally. We need vocal supporters. So if you're going to be with us and be loud and proud with us. Educate yourself on LGBTQ issues. Respect LGBTQ's people's decision about how, when, and where to come out. Stop trying to force people out the closet. It is not your right and it is not your business. You can join your school's gay or straight alliance or start one at your own school or company. Remember that being LGBTQ is only one part of someone's identity. It's not, their entire identity and their entire life. Remember that every person is layered within and beyond their identities. Lastly, I want to say, show as much interest in your LGBTQ friends or family members, partners, just as you would as for any other person, especially straight person's partner. We deserve the same treatment in that respect. Speak up when other people are being homophobic, transphobic, biphobic, or queerphobic. If people are making offensive jokes or using negative language, bullying, harassing someone due to their sexual orientation or gender identity, don't be silent. Don't stand for it. Like, we need your voice. Let them know that it's inappropriate and that it shouldn't be happening. If you need help on confronting, someone on any of those phobias, homophobia, trans, bi, queer, first decide if it's safe to address that issue with the person. You can consider whether, you want to save that conversation for later or when the person is alone, or it might be better to, just figure out a receptive way to deliver, your message. Most importantly, when you're communicating about these things, be sure to stay calm and avoid insulting or creating a confrontational space with the person. So, if you are a young person experiencing homophobia, transphobia, bi, or queerphobia, and it's causing you to feel depressed or suicidal, the Trevor Project can help. So the Trevor Project, you can find their resources at www.thetrevorproject.org. We'll post the link in the comments so that you all can have that resource. And that's all I really have. I do want to say thank you for all of the guests who appeared today. Their transparency, vulnerability, it was much appreciated. And I want to thank them for their bravery and their advocacy against homophobia, trans, bi, queerphobia. We are all in this fight together. And I want to make sure that, we all say no to homophobia, biphobia, trans, and queerphobia. So continue to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Our handle is at Whitman-Walker. You can find the most up-to-date information and more content there. Also, you can tune into our U team on Instagram, which is at Real Talk DC. And also, as Sol mentioned earlier, she works with our cultural center, The Corner. You can also follow The Corner on Instagram at The Corner DC. Thank you all for tuning in today. Amazing, amazing conversation. Thank you, Orlando. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Sol. Thank you, JJ. Much appreciated conversation. And remember,